revealed that the 2012 estimate was significantly below industry standards. An additional $75 million a year is required to operate these assets once the assets come into operation. Nalcor must take all reasonable measures to minimize the impact on customers, and we have taken steps to ensure that we imagine the cost impact on customer electricity rates. Measures including the completion of the transmission system ahead of the Muskrat Falls generation will mean lower cost recaptured power from the upper Churchill will be used to displace all of our generation at a Holy Road, and the savings will be available to help reduce electricity rates to customers. In addition, the finalization of the federal loan guarantee agreement, having secured that, we obtained additional debt financing for the project, which also benefits the customers. We remain focused on completing the remaining 25% of the project, pursuing ways to further reduce electricity rate impact on customers from the project. That's my commitment and our focus for the coming years. Thank you very much.
We ask this question every time, but how much more do you think it's going to rise by the time the project is done?
Well, we're reducing risks substantially. As we do these deals, we're substantially reducing the possibility of further increases. Some risks we have no control over. Social risks from interruption to operations. And the things we can control, I'm getting much more comfortable. I think in this update, we have an appropriate allowance for everything. We've had to go back to the beginning of the project to try to address the legal costs. Muskrat Falls has had its surprises. I'm trying to make sure we don't have many more.
But it's gone up $1 billion basically since you took over. I mean, what's to say there's not going to be another $1 billion tacked on next year?
We have reduced risks. There are things which, are out of control, disruption to the site, which we can't control and I can't even estimate. The estimate I give you now is the best estimate I can provide from the knowledge we have, with a substantially increased confidence factor. Last year I was in a job only for three weeks basically, and giving you my best estimate based on the very limited knowledge I had. Over the past year we've done an awful lot of work, and we're now getting around looking at the operating costs. So there's no absolute assurances, but I am absolutely comfortable that we have, in the numbers presented, the best estimate anybody can provide right now.
Sir, last year you agreed that this project is a boondoggle. What would you say at this point?
I said it was a boondoggle, and my task was to make sure when it's finished it won't be. I can't change certain things, the contractual construct around this. Only time can help there. All I can do is to minimize the costs going forward, attempt to mitigate costs to customers. That I'll do. With time, the impact will diminish. There are other things that may be done in the longer term, but I have to focus right now. Last year I had to focus almost on the next day. Now I can focus on the next month and maybe hopefully the year ahead.
And what would you say in response, just as a quick follow-up to those who say, at this point Nalcor has a real public trust problem. What do you say about that? How you assure people that maybe there will be other surprises, but...
There's always surprises in life. All I can say is that, yes, I can understand why people lack the trust. And I'm going to do everything I can. And it'll take time. It won't happen tomorrow. But hopefully by the time I'm finished, maybe I'll first of all, let me say, I hope you're around 3 years to finish it. But, I hope by then too, that people realize that there are a lot of very dedicated, committed people trying to do their utmost best on their behalf.
Have you considered leaving?
No, I made a commitment for 4 years, but they can get rid of me anytime they want.
Again, on the question of trust, just for a second, I'm curious as to what level of trust you have in terms of the numbers that you're dealing with right now. You mentioned in particular on the operation and maintenance costs, that it was something that you took a look at, and suddenly you find there's a lot more there to be considered. Are there any other areas like that on your radar, or any numbers that you're
I think
not sure of?
every day I reduce the risk more. I know more of what's going on. Offhand, I can't think of any big thing. Like I say, I'm very uncertain about social costs, obviously. I mean, I have no control over interruptions on site. We're trying to work as closely as we can with the government and with the Aboriginal leadership in Labrador. I think every day we're improving, but it's a long-term exercise. And unfortunately, we have things to do in the short term. So we're doing our utmost best to improve those relationships, to reduce costs. A good part of what I'm doing here today, like I said, I could have come forward and ignored costs that are there to be sorted out after I'm gone, at the end. And it's not my style. I said, let's bring everything forward. Everything we think of, we'll bring forward and resolve. We've resolved the Stolly. I've indicated here we've resolved now with the principal contractor on the transmission line. We're well along the way with resolving the problems with the other contractors. And that is key to, for example, making up for a 3-month delay. We think that if we can get the contractors working well, we can overcome that. But that's, making sure that they feel that they've been fairly paid. We agree upon a new schedule, that we're going to support them, as we have with the Stolly. And if you look at the Stolly one, and they were last year this time, they were critical. Absolutely critical. And I was in a situation where I come in the morning, I didn't know I have to lay off several thousand workers that day, because we were facing a wall with them. If we did that, we'd be shut down for a year. So it took us time. First with an interim agreement. We had an interruption in October. We got back at it. We got the agreement in place, and the Stolly has performed extremely well. Not only meeting, but in many cases exceeding the targets we set for them.
But in terms of the O&M costs in particular here, it's a dramatic change.
It is.
So how do you, I guess, have faith in numbers that you have, not even just on this project, but beyond this project?
There's no question in my mind. Let me tell you, I said this last year when I tried to explain what went on here. There's no question in my mind that the initial costs were tremendously underestimated. I saw that in the capital costs, now I'm seeing it in the operating costs. Even at the time this was done, they would have been extremely low. Anybody with knowledge of the business, knew they were low. And so, in order to come here and justify them to you, I said, let's go and do a benchmarking study. Let me make sure now I don't go forward with a number that I'm just taking off the top of my head. I'm getting old, maybe I've forgotten the right number. So we benchmarked, we took a standard, which is a high standard, but we've engaged a company that has achieved that standard, and they're going to work with us to achieve it here. That's how we keep the cost down. I mean, we could come in and say the average in the industry is 2%, for example, knowing full well that applies to older assets. So we've done the benchmarking, we've had a high standard, and we've taken measures to ensure that we meet that standard.
But have your predecessors then, if they knew those numbers were low, did your predecessors intentionally or generally mislead the public? And to what degree?
I don't know, I can't answer that. I don't know what the motivation was, I don't know what happened and who made the decisions. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of evidence, whether it's on the capital costs or on the operating costs, which suggests to me that either intentionally or otherwise, the costs were significantly underestimated.
So the public was misled?
Either intentionally or unintentionally.
By whom?
That I don't know.
With regards to the end user, this is all really about people, right? One of the slides you've shown here has indicated that people are going to be paying double what they're paying, people in Newfoundland, they're going to be paying double on power in 5 years' time than what they're paying now, pending any government mitigation measures. What does that mean to these people?
It's a hardship to people. What do you think I'm here? I knew this is a boondoggle. It should have been built. How many times do I have to say that? But it's too late to stop. We couldn't go and get a refund. And we're doing our best now to do what we can to minimize those impacts. I know they're harsh. We've had some concrete ways of doing it. The early in-feed, it wasn't thought of. It represents possibly, a couple $100 million or more. There's other things I can foresee when I get around to doing them. Last year I said, look, I had immediate issues to deal with. I have 3 years to deal with mitigation. I'm saying that again now. I'm showing you that we have already identified one and are moving on a concrete one. There are other things, rates we're working on. We're doing those things. Fortunately, we've got some time to work on them. No, I recognize the issue. Let me assure you.
But when people say someone should be held accountable for this, not Nalcor, someone. What's your response?
Ultimately, the person who leads is accountable. I'm going to be accountable for everything I do here. My predecessors had to be accountable for what they did.
And sir, just on methyl mercury, this is an issue that's not going away. You still see the ongoing demonstrations. People have concerns. What do you say about what you can do to ease those concerns so you don't have these kinds of delays going forward?
We're working with them. You know, there's studies being commissioned. We're increasing our budget here for monitoring. We know these things are issues, hard issues for people to understand. I'm not going to do anything to endanger people. Let me assure you. I have confidence in what the issues are, knowledge of the issues. I've expressed them fairly forcefully in the past, but we have to convince the people out there so they generally understand the issue.
Mr. Marshall, off the top you referenced to fatalities on the transmission tower earlier this week. Why has nobody from Nalcor publicly commented on this until now?
Because the contractor is primarily responsible, and they have to investigate what happened there. I don't know myself right now. The contractor is responsible. We've assisted in every way we can. When we know what happened, we will ensure that it's conveyed publicly.
Mr. Marshall, I was talking to a worker who told me what happens. It can't be that hard to find out.
I've heard stories as well. I don't want to speculate. I want to ensure that the investigation is complete, because I can't go on rumors or reports from one individual or not.
I heard that when the tower was being put up, one of the guy wires was too short, and the tower was left up for a while, a period. And then when they went to reattach a new guy wire that was the right length, that's when the tragedy occurred.
That may well be the case. I don't know.
You don't know that?
I don't know as a fact what happened.
Is that a possibility?
A distinct possibility. I mean, the tower collapsed. It had to be because one of the guys let go, presumably. But I don't know. I generally don't know. Until the investigation is complete, I'd expect it by now to receive the report. I haven't.
When will we know?
That's completely up to the contractor and to the investigators.
Can we expect any additional costs, again, on the question of the delivery time of power to Nova Scotia? Are there any possible penalties to Nalcor for not providing power
As I understand the contract, that they are entitled to power once the third unit, they are entitled to power when the third unit at Muskrat Falls comes on stream. So at that point in time, you know, there's no obligation to them.
Just back to the tower issue for a moment. Are there any plans to inspect other towers in the wake of this accident?
Are there plans to erect?
Inspect any of the other towers in the wake of this accident?
I assume that once they find out what caused the collapse, they'll do whatever inspections are necessary. When this happened, you know, we all stood down. Everybody working on towers stood down to make sure, first of all, there's no identifiable issue that affects the other work. I mean, I think everybody's back to work now except for people who are working on the similar towers, the contract working on similar towers. That's my understanding.
So this is a waiting game now until that report comes in?
Yeah, that's right.
And we don't know when we'll ever find it.
Well, I was expecting it by now, quite frankly.
It's a long time.
But I'm sure that between the company and the provincial health and safety people, they want to make sure they have the answer.
The largest single cost of increase that's been identified in today's update was legal costs, or sorry, not legal costs, but the contract cost of $400 million. Can you just discuss that number and just break it down a little bit? How many contractors are we talking about?
It's pretty much every contractor and even the subcontractors on site. I can't break it down too fine. The same way, when I was dealing with just one contractor, I couldn't give you the number. So I'm dealing with a whole number of them, and they're at various stages. So you can assume that almost every contractor has worked up there has a claim. And when we work with the people who have contracts with us, they have subcontractors who are coming after them. So we've made a lot of progress in resolving it. But we had to deal with a Stolly first, because without a Stolly, everything shut down. That was done, resolved. We immediately went into talking to the equipment manufacturers and the main contractor on the transmission line. Transmission line one has been resolved. Like I say, it hasn't been signed, but unless they come back to say today that I want a bigger share of your money here, that it's done, right? So a lot of progress. I'm hoping in the next few months that all that will be put behind us. We'll know for certain what it is.
So $400 million is estimated for how much Nalcor will pay out. How how much has been claimed? Do we know, are they claiming $500 million and you're hoping?
No, we don't know that.
Okay.
For example, when Andritz was the only company to actually file a lawsuit last year. But in the statement of claim, they didn't specify the amount they were seeking. Because they're all looking ahead too. I mean, if there's a delay, they'll say, well, what's it going to cost right to the completion of the project? And they're holding their cards close to their chest as well. So the first meeting we always have is that you all have a big number, big gap. But it's like any settlement. It's a view of where do you think you're going to meet. Until you see all their documentation, and they have their documentation, we have ours. And sometimes they didn't know what what they had. And I showed you one there where when I saw the documentation, it was, to my mind, a perfectly valid claim.
So there could very well, sorry. So there could very well be variation on that $400 million number as well.
Yeah, there will be variation. I mean, that's an estimate. What I've done, I mean, when you're looking at estimates, and throughout this piece, you go in and you establish a range of possibilities by contract, by piece of work. Then you make your best estimate yourself. We also engage specialists who are involved in this type of analysis. And what they produce for me is what I call an S-curve, a probability of different outcomes. And then it becomes my decision at what probability level do I go forward with. I think historically here, I'm not sure, historically it went 50-50. What's the 50-50 chance of settling at this or below? What I've done, if you're a statistician, and that I've gone at 75% level. So I should be, if everything is done right, I should be 75% confident that I'll settle at this number or less.
Mr. Marshall, what most people are wondering right now is what will the rates be? I know you posted 23.7 without mitigation, 0.3 I think without mitigation. What is your best guess where rates will be?
It's
Or
very,
do you have an
there's
objective?
so many public policy decisions involved that, for example, we'll create a pot from the early in-feed. Over what period of time do you want to phase in rates? Other things we'll do in Nalcor, but ultimately they'll come down to a public policy decision. How different things are. My task is to make as many options as possible available to the province. I'll probably advise them if I'm still around, but let's do what we can to give them as much optionality as they can, and then they'll decide when the time comes.
Do you think the people of the province deserve an answer to a forensic audit?
Like I said, I've said previously, I don't oppose any forensic audit. It doesn't help me. I mean, I'm convinced in my own mind what's going on. It doesn't affect, I don't have the time, inclination, or quite frankly, the skills to go back and find out what went on. My focus is going forward. How do I achieve the mandate that was assigned to me? To finish this project at the lowest cost, to find ways to mitigate the costs. That's my mandate. If somebody wants to go back, by all means. The only thing right now is that for me, the last thing I need is more things, boards to report to and everything else. But look, I'm not opposed to that.
What about public inquiries? Is that serious?
I don't know what the significance of public inquiries or anything else is. That's all in the political arena. My job is to just get this job done.
In terms of internally and rate mitigation, has the Premier, has the Minister, has anyone from government been talking to you about where some of Nalcor's own money might go on mitigation of rates? Has there been any talk of?
Just in terms of possibilities. Like I say, at this point, we're keeping everybody informed on the numbers as best we can. We give all updates we can. My task was to give the government options.
Have they asked you about Gull Island lately?
I hope not. I'm not. Last thing I need is another project right now. Let's solve this one first, please.
In your mind, what's the biggest part of this project that has gone wrong?
That's a difficult question when I've already said that the project should never have been built. The only way to have solved this is not to build it in the first place. When we got to the point of no return, it was very early in my estimation. Once you committed contractually to all this stuff, once you're into it, and contractually committed, then it almost became impossible to turn back. So that was before my time. I didn't even know when that happened. I don't know when the contracts were signed. Roughly I know, but when that was, I don't know. But since I became, it was quite clear when I got here. I mean, it's well beyond the point of no return. And you can see, I think there's one task we've had, or one of the other tasks we've had as a company is try to convey to people how far along we are. That's one of the reasons I showed you those pictures today. This thing is coming to fruition. By the end of this year, the transmission line will be finished. So, you know, not aside from the terminal stations and whatnot. We're closing in the powerhouse. The water has been diverted. All the major contracts have now been let, or the one I've talked about, will have been let. The initial delays and problems are being overcome. So you know, the only way is to go forward and finish it the best way possible. And then try to find ways to mitigate it. But you cannot change the big picture on its own right. It cannot be changed. The only thing I could see would be maybe if there was a massive increase in electricity prices in the United States to bail us out. And I don't expect it to happen at all.
Do you think that Danny Williams is the new Joey Smollett?
I'll refrain from comment.
I guess in the thing when you talk about the low prices.
I'll say this. I think this project is a hell of a lot worse a deal than the Upper Churchill. In the Upper Churchill, it didn't cost the consumers of this province a cent. Here, in building this project, in the contractual construct I've described, somebody speculated on energy prices and lost, and the consumers of this province are going to pay for it. I'll tell you that.
In terms of how the project has progressed, I know you've been asked about a forensic audit. Do you believe a forensic audit would uncover any evidence of corruption, for example?
I don't know. All I can tell you is that, in my view, the costs were significantly underestimated. Both the capital costs and the operating costs. I've seen a lot of documentation, and that is no question in my mind. Who and why, I don't know. I'm not at all surprised that this project has cost in the $10 to $12 million range. I said that 4 or 5 years ago.
Not publicly, though.
Not publicly. Why would I?
Should you have spoken, I mean, we asked you about this years ago when you were CEO of Fortis, and maybe you couldn't
Yeah.
say much then, but should you have spoken up earlier?
You go back about 15 years ago in the Telegram, when Tobin was in power, and you'll find an interview the Telegram did with me, when I talked about the problems with developing power in Muskrat Falls, for which I was severely chastised at the time, a long time ago. I earned my lesson. If it doesn't involve me, when I'm in work for a company, I stay out of it entirely. My door was always open, as it is today. Anybody wants to come see me, I have a qualification for the press. But it was quite well known what my opinion was, and is.
Bit of a heartbreak, isn't it?
Terrible. And to be in it and try and do what you can, and be there with other people who are trying to do their best, and have people have this very low opinion of you when you're working for them. But we're going to do it. As long as I'm here, we'll do our best. And I'm sure the people I have around me are the same mind. The mandate I've given to them is that we're, irrespective of everything that's gone on, we're going to finish strong. You can be proud of how you finish. People will remember how you finished. They may not, people will forget how people started. The same people are not all the same people around. There's been so many changes. I mean, a lot of these estimates were prepared by consultants and engineers long gone. I don't know who they are. Like I said, history is one thing. I don't have time to spend on it. Not my mandate. But I can influence the future. I think I've influenced last year. I hope I've given you the best absolute information I can possibly give you. And as you know, my door is open to you. That's my commitment.